You may think you're in control of your life, but in truth, you're only reacting. Someone says something and you get angry. Social media pushes a headline and you believe it instantly. You scroll, comment, argue everything like a reflex. Each day you're pulled along by the emotions and opinions of others without stopping to ask yourself, are these truly my own thoughts? The Stoics understood that true freedom begins within, when we reclaim sovereignty over our own mind. To live deliberately means to observe before reacting, to question before believing, and to choose your response through reason, not instinct. When you pause and look deeply into yourself, you realize that real power is not in controlling the world, but in controlling how you see and think about the world. This is not some distant philosophy, it is a discipline of living. And today, we will take that first step into the journey. 1. Most people react. They do not truly think. Most people live on autopilot without realizing it. They hear a story and instantly believe and share it without verifying. See a shocking headline and react emotionally. Read a comment online and rush to reply. Everything happens so quickly that they believe they are thinking, when in truth, it is only a chain of actions driven by habit, emotion, and social influence. In this state, we do not truly choose our thoughts. We allow whatever appears first in the mind to automatically dictate our response. True thinking is entirely different from reacting. It does not flare up by instinct, it unfolds deliberately, slowly, and requires patience. The Stoics treated this as a discipline of life. To pause before replying, to observe the essence of a matter before judging, and to question the real meaning behind the information received. This runs counter to the habits of society, where speed and instant assertion are often praised. We are encouraged to have opinions immediately, to respond instantly to every situation, and in doing so, we gradually forget the value of stillness and reflection. When we react hastily, we hand over control of ourselves to passing emotions. Anger can make our words sharp and wounding. Fear can drive us into poor decisions, and pride can push us to defend a wrong stance simply to protect the ego. The Stoics understood that the pause between an event and our response is where personal freedom resides. In that pause, we can observe, grasp what is truly happening, and choose a response that aligns with our principles and values. To live only in reaction is to be led by the external world. To truly think is to live from an inner compass. To break the cycle of reaction, we must train the ability to stand still in the mind, giving ourselves time to ask questions, analyze information, and view the matter from multiple angles before deciding. When we do this, we not only reduce mistakes and conflicts, but also build an inner strength that is not easily shaken by the turbulence of the outside world. And that is the first step toward reclaiming sovereignty over our own life. 2. A noisy mind is an untrained mind. An untrained mind often resembles a cramped room filled with clashing sounds, where dozens of radios play at once on different frequencies. It is crowded with regrets about the past, worries for the future, unfinished tasks, imagined conversations, judgments of others, and unfulfilled desires. In this state, people often mistake mental busyness for clarity of thought, believing that constant thinking means they are in control, when in reality, they are simply drowning in inner chaos. The Stoics understood that no clear wisdom can arise in such a mental environment. They recognized that noise comes not only from the outside news, social media, the opinions of others, but more dangerously from within. It is the endless self-talk, the repeated stories in the mind, the ingrained assumptions and biases left unchallenged. When these inner noises are not recognized and managed, They form a thick fog that clouds our ability to observe and judge. Training the mind begins with intentional silence. Silence here does not mean forcing all thoughts away, but creating the space to observe them without being swept along. Like a lake, when its surface is constantly disturbed, we cannot see the bottom. Only when the water is still can we see clearly what lies beneath. Mental stillness works in the same way. It reveals what truly matters, what is an unfounded fear, and which goals are worth pursuing. Practices such as meditation, journaling, or simply conscious breathing are tools the Stoics valued. They are not idle relaxation, but exercises in mental discipline, restoring order to the mind. As inner noise subsides, focus, perception, and decision-making become sharper. A noisy mind is the root of impulsiveness, agitation, and lack of self-control. By contrast, a still mind is the foundation of steadiness, focus, and resilience in the face of change. Cultivating that stillness is not a one-time act. It is a habit nurtured daily, so that we can stand firm in a chaotic world without being swept away. 3. Emotion clouds reason. Emotion is a natural part of being human, but when it swells too strongly, it can blur our ability to see things objectively. In anger, we are quick to believe we are entirely right and others entirely wrong. In fear, we tend to believe the worst-case scenario, even when it has not happened. In sorrow, we may think the world will remain dark forever. In such states, the world is seen through a warped lens, like glass cracked so that every image is distorted. The Stoics did not deny emotion, but they understood that when emotion rules, reason is pushed aside. The goal is not to suppress or banish emotion, but to recognize it and create distance from it. By naming an emotion, saying, "There is anxiety," instead of "I am anxious," we separate ourselves from the state. This distance allows us to observe the emotion as a temporary phenomenon, rather than merging our identity with it. When we see that emotions are only fleeting responses of mind and body, we stop being blindly led by them. The Stoics practiced pausing before reacting, observing their state and asking, "Does this emotion reflect the truth? What information am I missing? Is there another way to view this situation?" In questioning, we broaden our perspective and lessen the power of emotion over our choices. Emotion not only colors present perception, it can leave a residue that shapes how we see the world afterward. One negative experience can cause us to wrongly label similar situations, even when reality has changed. This is why the ability to separate the event from the story emotion tells is essential. The Stoics understood that clarity does not come from erasing emotion, but from thinking through it. This skill is honed over time by continually observing our own reactions, noting emotion's influence on thought, and choosing our actions based on principle rather than passing states. When emotion no longer clouds our vision, reason can operate fully. Then each decision arises from careful consideration, unwarped by the waves within. This is the strength of the awakened mind, to feel every shade of emotion, yet not be steered by them. 4. Do not live on borrowed beliefs. From birth, each of us is surrounded by a web of beliefs, prejudices, and truths handed down from family, community, culture, and education. Views about what is right or wrong, what success means, what failure signifies, what love should be, and which behaviors are proper are often absorbed unconsciously when we are too young to question. As a result, much of what operates in our mind was not formed from our own experience, but inherited from others and assumed to be our own. The Stoics taught that true maturity begins when we dare to question these deep-seated beliefs. They did not reject the value of culture and tradition, but stressed that every belief must be examined through reason and personal experience. Blind loyalty to inherited ideas, even when they are outdated or unhelpful, becomes a major barrier to inner freedom. Re-examining beliefs does not mean rejecting everything or living in total opposition to the world we grew up in. It means looking directly at each assumption and asking, does this still hold true for me? Does it bring peace or only pressure? Does it arise from truth or from fear and the need for acceptance? In this way, we begin to separate our genuine core values from what is merely the intellectual inheritance of others. The Stoics practiced this as an ongoing habit. They understood that beliefs are not immovable stones, but mental structures that can evolve and improve over time. Today, we might question the idea of success, tomorrow our view of pain, and another day our relationship with time. Each such inquiry refines our operating system so that it reflects who we are and the values we choose to live by. Challenging old beliefs often brings discomfort, for it forces us out of the familiar and into the possibility of change. Yet its reward is true autonomy, knowing why we live as we do, free from the patterns imposed upon us. A belief that remains after thorough examination becomes a solid foundation on which to build life. A belief discarded frees us from the invisible limits that once confined us. 5. Thinking is a discipline, not a reflex. In daily life, most people confuse thinking with reacting. When confronted with information that upsets them, they respond instantly. When an unfavorable situation arises, they rush to protect themselves. When an event excites them, they react without considering the consequences. These things happen so quickly that they feel like thinking, but in truth, they are nothing more than automatic reactions driven by emotion, habit, or immediate desire. The Stoics did not see quick reactions as a sign of wisdom. They saw thinking as a discipline, a deliberate process that requires time, observation, and careful weighing. Disciplined thought does not spring to life the instant it is provoked. It begins only after we have created a pause between stimulus and response. In that pause, we can step outside the flow of emotion, analyze the information, assess the context, and choose a course of action that aligns with our principles. The habit of reacting quickly may satisfy the urge to defend the ego or assert status, but it often bypasses the chance to truly understand the matter. Disciplined thinking, on the other hand, is willing to be seen as slow or even underestimated, because its value lies in precision and stability of judgment, not in the speed of reply. This is why the Stoic is unafraid to remain silent when others expect an immediate answer, knowing that a hasty response can lead to regret, while a well-considered one preserves integrity and long-term direction. Thinking as a discipline also requires selectivity. Not every idea is worth adopting, not every emotion worth following, and not every voice worth heeding. The ability to discern what to keep and what to discard lies at the heart of practical wisdom. This means cultivating patience to observe, to question, and to verify instead of accepting the first impression. Like any form of training, disciplined thinking must be practiced regularly. Each time we pause to examine our thoughts before acting, we strengthen this capacity. Over time, the reflex to pause becomes a habit, and with it, our decisions grow clearer, more directed, and less swayed by fleeting impulses. The difference between one who merely reacts and one who thinks with discipline is not about speed, but about who is leading, whether life drives them or they drive themselves. Only when we treat thinking as a discipline to be honed each day do we step closer to true inner freedom. 6. Truth comes from observation, not opinion. We live in an age where opinions appear everywhere and spread with dizzying speed. Everyone has a viewpoint, and the sheer volume of these viewpoints often makes them seem convincing regardless of accuracy. Yet volume and confidence do not equal truth. An opinion, no matter how forcefully stated, remains a subjective interpretation shaped by the speaker's experiences, emotions, and existing beliefs. The Stoics knew that truth is not found by collecting as many opinions as possible, but by observing directly and with clarity. Observation here is not merely seeing with the eyes, it is listening, sensing, analyzing, and recording events as they are, before attaching any story or judgment to them. Truth often lies in the raw data of reality, uncolored by emotion or assumption. The difference between observation and opinion lies in the removal of initial assumptions. When faced with an event, an untrained mind rushes to label, explain, or conclude based on past experience. The trained observer, however, waits patiently for the fog of preconception to lift, allowing reality to reveal its true shape. They resist the urge to declare something right or wrong, focusing instead on what is actually taking place. Confusing opinion with truth is the root of many misunderstandings and conflicts. When we believe our opinion is absolute truth, we shut ourselves off from other possibilities and miss opportunities to adjust our understanding. The Stoic does not fuse their identity with opinion, knowing that opinions can change as observation deepens or new information emerges. Observation also demands humility. It forces us to admit that our perception has limits and that what we see may not be the whole picture. This humility opens the door to learning, for only when we know we do not know everything do we continue to seek the truth. By placing observation above opinion, we weaken the hold of personal bias and prejudice. We approach situations with an open mind, ready to receive reality rather than bending it to fit our existing molds. This is one of the key principles by which the Stoics preserve clarity, knowing that only truth, seen through an unjudging eye, has the power to guide reason and right action. 7. Rigid certainty often walks with ignorance. The feeling of absolute certainty can bring temporary comfort, but it can also become a major obstacle to deeper understanding. When people believe they already hold the whole truth, they stop seeking, stop questioning, and close the door to new knowledge. This extreme confidence is often not built on solid understanding, but on a fear of being challenged or proven wrong. It is a defense mechanism of the ego, maintaining a sense of control by rejecting all possibilities beyond one's current view. The Stoics recognized that rigid certainty does not reflect wisdom. It often reflects the limits of perception. They understood that the world is more complex than any one person can fully grasp, and that all knowledge is but a fragment of the greater whole. Thus, they embraced purposeful doubt, seeing it as a sign of an open and receptive mind. They did not treat "I don't know" as weakness, but as an expression of humility and a hunger to learn. Intellectual humility allows us to approach new information with greater objectivity. When we are not bound by the need to be right, we can examine multiple perspectives, weigh evidence, and change our views when compelling proof appears. By contrast, clinging too tightly to certainty makes us more likely to distort or ignore information that conflicts with our current beliefs just to protect our self-image and sense of consistency. Maintaining a healthy degree of doubt does not mean lacking principles or hesitating to act. The Stoics did not abandon their principles, but they were always willing to adjust their perspective when reality showed them where they were incomplete. This kept their actions rooted in truth and reason, not in illusion or old mental habits. A mind that is both principled and adaptable is the product of this training. It can stand firm amid change without becoming so rigid that it binds itself. This balance between steadfastness and adaptability is the mark of true wisdom. Rigid certainty often hides the fear of being wrong. But when we dare to set aside that shield, we do not lose strength, we gain it by seeing reality more fully. The Stoics knew that on the path to truth, the wisest answer at times is to admit we are still learning. 8. You are not your thoughts. One of the most important realizations on the path of inner discipline is understanding that thoughts are products of the mind, not the essence of who we are. The stream of thoughts passing through our head is like clouds in the sky, constantly changing shape, appearing and disappearing. Yet most people identify themselves with what they think, getting caught up in every idea and story the mind generates. When a negative thought arises, they treat it as part of themselves and act on it, even though in truth it is only a temporary phenomenon. The Stoics recognized that true power comes from creating space between the observer and the observed. When we become aware that we are the ones looking at our thoughts and not the thoughts themselves, we begin to reclaim control. This space allows us to assess whether a thought is reasonable, useful, and aligned with our principles. If it does not meet those standards, we can let it pass without leaving a mark. Separating ourselves from thought does not mean denying or suppressing it. It means watching it calmly without rushing to judge or follow. In doing so, we cease to be victims of mental loops, repetitive stories, self-criticism, or pessimistic scripts, and instead become managers of the mind's flow. This is the state of inner freedom, where the mind serves our purpose and values rather than unconsciously dictating our actions. Once we see that thoughts are merely signals, we can choose to respond rather than react. Thoughts rooted in fear, anger, or doubt may arise, but instead of treating them as commands, we can treat them as information to be examined. This attitude allows us to act based on reason and principle rather than being led by fleeting emotions. Recognizing that you are not your thoughts also fosters humility. Understanding that the mind can produce both sound and flawed ideas makes us less attached to our personal opinions and more open to learning. We no longer feel the need to defend every idea as though it defines us, and we can release or adjust it when necessary. The Stoics saw this as one of the core skills for attaining tranquility. When you stand apart from the stream of thought and view it from the position of the observer, you see clearly that the mind is only a tool. And like any tool, it must be used skillfully and with intent. When you learn to wield the mind rather than be ruled by it, you find a stability and freedom that nothing external can take away. 9. If you do not master your mind, others will. The mind is the most valuable space each person possesses. Yet it is also the easiest to be invaded if we are not vigilant. In the modern world, countless streams of information, images, sounds, and messages are engineered to capture your attention every second. From news, social media, and advertising to the words of those around you, everything seeks to slip into your thoughts, shaping your emotions and guiding your behavior. If you do not actively protect and manage what is allowed to enter, your mind will quickly become a field where others plant and harvest according to their will. The Stoics understood that personal freedom lies not only in the ability to act, but in the ability to choose and control what nourishes the mind. They were keenly aware that once you let others decide what you think, what you care about, and what you believe, you have surrendered the deepest form of autonomy. This is not control that shouts, but influence that works in silence, shaping thought through repetition, stirring emotion, and cultivating reflexive habits. Mastery of the mind begins with selecting your inputs. This means not passively absorbing every piece of information you encounter, but weighing whether it is valuable, aligned with your principles, and capable of making you wiser. It also requires the ability to recognize unseen influences at work and to deliberately reduce or remove them if necessary. Guarding the mind is not only about removing the negative, it is about creating a mental environment that sustains clarity. The Stoics valued periods of quiet, intentional reflection and exposure to sources of knowledge that broaden perspective. They knew that the mind, like the body, needs daily care and training to maintain its strength and its resistance to external pressure. If you do not hold the reins, you will be carried along by the priorities and aims of others, rather than walking the path you choose. Each decision and reaction will slowly reflect a value system planted in you, rather than one you have built for yourself. When this happens, you are no longer the author of your life, but merely an actor in a script already written. The Stoics remind us that the mind is the last fortress of personal freedom. If you guard it with awareness and resolve, no force can take it. But if you abandon it, there will always be someone ready to shape it for you, and in that moment, you have lost the most important part of yourself. 10. To think well. Think slowly. In a world that worships speed, it is easy to mistake quick reactions for intelligence and efficiency. Social media, instant news, rapid exchanges all create pressure to have an immediate opinion. Yet speed does not always lead to clarity. When the mind is rushed to respond, it often relies on reflex, emotion, or ingrained bias instead of careful analysis and considered judgment. The Stoics viewed slowness in thought not as delay, but as a strategy for clarity. Just as a muddy stream needs time for its sediment to settle, the mind needs time for information and emotion to find their order. When we allow ourselves to pause and observe, what once seemed contradictory can become clear. Overlooked details can emerge, and our decisions can be based on the whole picture rather than a fragment. Slow thinking protects us from the mistakes of haste. An unconsidered word can wound, a hasty decision can leave lasting damage, and a reaction too quick can cost us the chance to understand a situation more deeply. By thinking slowly, we create a safe space between stimulus and response, giving reason the chance to speak before emotion takes command. This does not mean every decision must be endlessly drawn out. Thinking slowly means valuing quality over speed, especially when dealing with matters of weight or complexity. The Stoics understood that a good decision grows out of a balance, absorbing information, assessing context, and re-examining our own assumptions. Time spent on these steps is not wasted. It is an investment to avoid paying the price of preventable mistakes. The practice of slow thought also trains us to bear uncertainty. Instead of rushing for immediate answers to ease discomfort, we remain with the question long enough to explore multiple angles. This is a rare skill, for truth and wisdom seldom appear in haste. Slow thinking does not weaken action, it strengthens it. When you have taken the time to truly understand what you face, your decisions will be more solid and less shaken by external pressures. That is why the Stoics saw slow thought as an essential part of practical wisdom and inner self-command. 11. Most conflict stems from poor thinking. Many believe that conflict is born mainly from differences in opinion, values, or interests. In reality, the deeper cause often lies in how people think and interpret events. When thought lacks clarity, we are prone to misreading the intentions of others, exaggerating the seriousness of a situation, or assigning it meanings that do not exist. A neutral remark can be taken as an insult. A harmless delay can be read as disrespect. The Stoics recognize that emotion and personal bias often pull perception away from truth. When we react to an event, we are not responding to the event itself as it is. We are reacting to the story our mind has built around it. These stories are often shaped by past experience, fear, or ego's need for defense, leading us to act as though facing a real threat when reality may be entirely different. Impatience in understanding the full context fuels conflict further. When we rush to conclude and respond, we bypass the chance to ask, listen, and verify. This not only escalates tension but also erodes trust. By contrast, a clear and composed mind can see that many problems are not as serious as they seem and at times not worth engaging an argument at all. The Stoics break this cycle by examining their thoughts before they act. They question the true meaning of another's words or actions, consider alternatives to their first assumption, and respond only after stripping away as much subjectivity as possible. In this way, they reduce needless conflict and preserve calm even in tense situations. Conflict does not happen only between people, it also occurs within. The silent arguments we hold with ourselves, the negative scenarios we create in our heads, all grow from poor and undisciplined thinking. When thought is clear, the inner life becomes calmer, and from that, fewer conflicts arise with the outside world. Realizing that most conflict originates in thinking, not in the event itself, makes us seek clarity before reacting. This is the foundation for preserving harmony, protecting relationships, and keeping peace of mind regardless of the world's turbulence. 12. The greatest strength is how you think. A person's strength is not measured only by knowledge, skill, or achievement. It lies also in how they think. Faced with the same situation, one person sees opportunity while another sees only obstruction. Faced with the same challenge, one remains calm and seeks a solution while another sinks into worry and panic. This difference is not about intelligence, it is about the mental framework each has trained. The Stoics understood that how we receive, process, and respond to information forms the foundation of all choices and actions. Thinking is not a random stream of ideas. It is a system shaped through observation, questioning, discarding false assumptions, and retaining principles that endure. When thinking is ordered, the mind becomes a tool for life's aims. When thinking is chaotic, it becomes the largest obstacle to progress. A sound mental structure keeps us proactive instead of being led by circumstance. It allows us to stand firm under pressure, keep reason steady even when emotion rises, and see events in a long-term light rather than reacting to short-term discomfort or gain. This is why the Stoics devoted themselves to mental training, not merely absorbing knowledge, but learning how to think about what they know. The strength of thought also lies in adaptability without the loss of principle. When faced with new information or an unforeseen situation, the person with a disciplined mind neither rushes to reject nor to accept, but judges by reason and experience. They can change their view when needed, yet never trade away core values to follow trends or external pressure. This means knowing how to ask the right questions. Instead of, "What will happen to me?" they ask, "What can I control and improve?" Instead of, "Why did this happen to me?" they ask, "What can I learn from this?" The right questions lead the mind toward solutions. The wrong ones only feed frustration and helplessness. When you understand that your greatest strength lies in how you think, you will invest more in training it each day. A well-trained mind becomes the foundation for peace, steadiness, and the ability to meet any change. It is a strength no one can take, for it comes from within and always remains under your control. I believe that all the principles shared here are not merely philosophical theory, but essential life skills that anyone can apply immediately. In a world overflowing with noise and pressure, the ability to think clearly is like a map that guides us through countless crossroads. Learning to observe instead of rushing to judge, to question instead of instantly accepting, and to choose a response instead of reacting will make us more deliberate in every situation. This is not a process that happens in a single day, it is a lifelong discipline. Every small step in mastering the mind contributes to building a steadfast inner core, and from that, every decision, action, and relationship will become more harmonious and meaningful. If you find these insights valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next content. Every step you take toward mastering your mind is a step closer to true freedom. A freedom no one can take from you, for it comes from within. And once you reach that state, you will understand that peace is the most enduring form of strength. See you in the next video.